Hey there, everyone. Welcome to this week's astrological report for April 14 through April 20 of 2026. Just want to say a few things before I get started here. One is thanks so much for all the well wishes on my community post about being sick. I appreciate that a lot. And also to my clientele that's waiting on a personal report, I do apologize for the long extended wait. It is going to take me probably the rest of April to get caught up on my normal schedule. So if you can continue to be patient, I'm going to try to send out a bulk email to everybody that's waiting and explain more for either a refund or if you're able to wait on this. So I do appreciate everybody. Also, I haven't really spoken much in the last 2 weeks, so my voice probably sounds different, a little messed up right now. Maybe it'll sound better as I go through this report, hopefully, and get it back to normal. I'm still not great. I'm still a little bit ill. Had some pretty serious health stuff come up, but I'm hoping I can push past this and move forward here. All right, so with all that said, there's a lot going on in the astrology, and we see this on the list that I have on the left-hand side of the screen here. I'm going to go ahead and list all the major aspects as I usually do, and then I'll just talk about the astrology and then go through the daily chart as normal. So again, this report is for April 14 through April 20, and that's until next Monday. But this week we have a lot of changes. Mercury currently is at the last critical degree of Pisces, finally moving out of Pisces and into Aries. That's going to be later today, this Ingress. So that's going to really start to change things a lot because Mercury has been stuck in Pisces for an extended period of time in its debilitation. So I still want to see Mercury get past Neptune before it gets better and better in that regard. But it is a big change. Now, before that change happens, Mercury at the last critical degree is connecting to Uranus, also at the last critical degree of Taurus. Uranus isn't going to be changing signs this week, but it is approaching that big ingress. So Mercury sextile Uranus, that's exact today, and I'll talk about the meaning of that. Plus, the moon is going to catch up to everything here. We're in the dark moon phase and headed for a new moon this week. That new moon will be on Friday. Aries New Moon conjunct Chiron. And Chiron is really in focus. The sun is putting a strong focus on Chiron. The new moon will cross over Chiron, and this whole new cycle will be about Chiron in a lot of ways. But we have a lot of other things going on too, including Mars making a sextile to Pluto. That's helpful for power and strength and energy. I'll talk more about that. We also have Mercury after the ingress into Aries. Mercury will be conjunct Neptune. That's going to be exact on April 16, Thursday before the new moon. And then Friday we have that new moon going on. Everything starts to shift towards Taurus after that new moon. Now Mercury in Aries will also make a sextile over to Pluto in Aquarius, so that's going to be important information and communications and this overall change of perception that's going to be coming in strong this week. Again, I'll talk more about that. And then we have Saturn making an in conjunction down to the South Node in Virgo. I'll explain how I see that going on. And then Mars will make an in conjunction also to the South Node. So both this Mars-Saturn conjunction that's building up towards the weekend into next week, it's going to be a pretty powerful event overall. But both of those planets are connecting to this kind of karmic South Node placement. So I'll talk more about that and what that might mean. It definitely connects to health for some people and work changes, but we'll get more into that. And then we have the big conjunction of Mars conjunct Saturn. That's a brand new 2-year cycle. It'll be about a 2.5 year cycle because of the retrograde of Mars. But that's a new cycle for Mars and Saturn. And I'll talk about that. I have researched that in the past. But we get even something more rare, and that is we're going to have a triple conjunction. Mercury will catch up to Mars and Saturn as well. So that will be on Sunday, the Mars-Saturn conjunction. At the same time, we're going to have a change of season by Sunday into next week. The sun will ingress Taurus. And then we're going to have Mercury also making that connection to the South Node in conjunction there by Sunday night. And then by Monday on April 20th, we get that Mercury conjunct Saturn, Mercury conjunct Mars. And that's pretty rare overall. Again, I've researched that. It actually doesn't always play out as a major event right when it's happening, but because it's kind of a new beginning, it's more about seeds are being planted symbolically for what this is talking about that will play out as time goes on. But it could still show some intensity for sure by next week here. So those are the main aspects, and I'm going to put them in the description, of course, write it out for you with timestamps. Okay, so looking at the chart, we see we have a stellium going on in Aries, which is only going to increase this week as both the moon will come into Aries, Mercury coming into Aries. So this is a lot of Aries, and it's pretty intense for the cardinal signs, especially if you have Libra. Like in my case, I have a lot of opposition here. I have a Capricorn moon. So if you have Capricorn, all this Aries is squaring you. If you have Cancer in your chart, all this Aries is squaring your Cancer. So again, the cardinal signs are going to really be affected the most by this Aries. And if you do have Aries planets, then you're also really being activated. And overall, this is a kind of a reset, a new beginning that's very powerful that will affect overall the next couple of years because of the Saturn component. Also, the cardinals are going through a Saturn transit now too, and that's part of my problem as well, is this Saturn aspecting all my personal planets now for the next year and a half. But I can handle it, and you guys can handle it too. So hang in there if you're going through any difficulties. All right, so yeah, that moon will come in and meet up with the sun and Chiron there, and we'll have this new cycle start. Now, Jupiter this week is moving back to 17 degrees for the third and final time. So also cardinal placements that have 17 are going to be really aspected in a kind of an over-amplified way because of this Jupiter transit. But Jupiter is exalted, and just looking at the chart, we have a lot of strong positions here. We have an exalted Jupiter. We have an exalted Venus still. We have a strong Mars that's now in charge of most of everything besides Venus. So overall, the final dispositors of this chart are Mars and Venus. And they're both dignified. They're both strong. The sun is dignified here. And then Mercury will leave its debilitation and get stronger. So we have a lot of strong positions that show that we have a lot of potential. We have a lot of capabilities of initiation, of getting things going, starting something, even pioneering something new. That can have great success. But this Chiron part, that's a little bit of a problem right there. That could also show some issues in what's going on with all this that I'll talk more about. But overall, we still, even like I was saying, a couple of weeks back about the markets have skyrocketed back to all-time highs again. Almost. They're right about at approaching all-time highs. It's crazy. We had that big dip, 8% dip about roughly on the S&P, and now it's already back up. Just like I said, it always goes back up, and if you bought that dip, then you're looking good right now. That's for sure. And even yesterday, I talked about the Venus-Jupiter sextile that was going on, and the markets responded very nicely to that, and they're continuing to show a lot of progress. And that shows that we have value too. We have personal value, especially if it aligns with your chart, where Venus and Jupiter are between 16 to 19 degrees of the earth and water signs are getting that the most. Okay, so I'm going to go through all this. Bear with me. I'm not at my best, as you can tell, but just hang in there, and I hope you'll, get something out of this. I wanted to get this report to you guys because I feel it just adds more stress when I'm backed up on work and not living up to my commitments. That's a Capricorn moon for you, though. Square 10th house stellium. All right, so with all that, let's get started here for Tuesday on April 14th. Is that where we're at? Yeah, April 14th. And today we actually have easy aspects overall. However, we are in the dark moon phase. The moon is in Pisces, but the moon got a little bit of support and help earlier this morning from Jupiter with that trine down to Jupiter. So first aspect of the day is moon trine Jupiter. It's behind the scenes. It's energetically, it's sensitive. It's not outward. It's kind of more private, but yet we still have so much outward energy that wants to be active in this time frame because of all this Aries. But in the meantime, with the dark moon phase, it's usually a time to prepare for the new beginning. Things are ending from the last cycle, preparing for the new, but it's still a little bit sensitive, perhaps, for people, emotional, or this can be pulling people into their own world behind the scenes. There can be just a lot more. That's where the easier energy is, in a more private, inward way. But this is also the psychological area. This is the end. This is a big ending, actually, because we had all those planets moving through Pisces for so long. Mercury's been in Pisces retrograde. Now it's moving forward finally. So this moon is going to really close out all this Pisces, which has a lot of psychological and mental and a lot of stuff, a lot of sensitivity, a lot of hidden things behind the scenes psychologically that are closing out with this dark moon. But it is a dark moon. There's no light on this moon. And so it's also intuitive. But hopefully that trine to Jupiter has helped people out a little bit. It's only temporary, but the moon is also building up a sextile this morning with Venus. So that's another nice aspect. At the same time this morning, we get the Mercury sextile Uranus. So Mercury sextile Uranus is an opportunity to think innovatively, to think outside the box and try new things. Communication, there can be a surprise communication. It's only a sextile, so it's not overly volatile. It's more open-minded typically. It's also a great aspect in this particular case of looking at your finances and your values and thinking about changes. This is the last big Uranus-Taurus transit that's closing out. And we have this last chance to really connect to this innovative aspect that allows us opportunity to make positive changes in the way we're thinking, managing, processing things with money and resources and overall values. So that's a good aspect there. It's still critical. There's a sense of urgency. There's a sense of things trying to end with this aspect as well. And then as the day goes on, the moon is connecting to Venus. I like that because, again, Venus is exalted. This will be in the afternoon hours, depending on where you live here. It's an aspect of pleasure, typically, or being more content or satisfied with what's going on. It's more behind the scenes, so it could also, be indulgences. It could be connecting to financial situations today. Again, I think the markets are doing really good right now. And it's just usually an aspect of more enjoyment and pleasure and opportunity to be more satisfied. It can also just be better for connections with other people, potentially. Let me just follow the dignity here and see who's the final dispositor. We already know Mars is. So again, all this Aries is being ruled by Mars. So Mars is really in charge. Action, impulsiveness, instinctiveness. This isn't so much about thinking about things here. Especially when Mercury makes that change, things are going to start to speed up more and more. And when the moon gets there and the new moon and everything starts waxing forward, things are going to start really moving forward in powerful new ways. But Mars is ultimately in charge of most of everything. Currently, with the moon and Mercury still in Pisces, that leads back to Jupiter. So until the moon gets out of Pisces, there is a mutual reception going on as well today between the moon and Jupiter. So again, that's helping things out. Maybe why I'm able to push through this and get this report out and talk for the first time in 2 weeks or something here. I hope it lasts. I hope this gives us the support we need. I hope this opens up the flow today. and starts making things better for people. But there is that mutual reception until the moon gets to Aries. And then Venus is in charge of itself in Taurus. All right, so then, so I like that moon sextile Venus. If you want to buy something, that's a good aspect to buy, make a purchase, go out for food. So check the description when you get that time. It doesn't have to be perfect, but around the time that Venus and the moon are connecting, it's a good time to be enjoying physical activities and even behind the scenes activities, music, creativity for some people. And then by tonight, we get the big change of Mercury, Ingress, Aries. About right there. So Tuesday night, change of perception. Finally, again, we've been stuck in this Mercury Pisces for so long, and Mercury's been struggling there. It's not been a place of clarity, actually, whether we think that or not. There's a lot of hidden things that have been going on that we just haven't been aware of or clear. And I think that, again, Mercury changing signs and the moon following up, we're going to start to get a lot more clarity. It's just going to be a lot easier to understand things, actually. Now, Mercury's great for spirituality and Pisces and creativity and music and all kinds of other things. But when it comes to the details and being analytical and practical and looking at things in, an overall realistic way, we kind of need this change to happen. But we also need Mercury to get past Neptune before we're getting better and better with our clarity. And once Mercury reaches Saturn and Mars, there's going to be a strong reality check coming in with that. But so it's not perfect just yet, but it is going to be building up more and more. Now, because this is the world point that Mercury has come into, and remember, this is exactly where Saturn and Neptune conjunction was rooted. It's another world development, So be on the lookout today, tomorrow, into Wednesday for major world developments and a turning of the corner and probably a new cycle for the world based on this new moon building up. So strong change here about the mind, how people are going to start to communicate. Mercury in Aries is a lot sharper, and quicker, and it's more impulsive. It just says things without, thinking about it too much. So check yourself in that way, with how you communicate. Just make sure you don't just, I think that there's still grace because of this strong Venus and these other positions. I think that it's still going to be, we're still able to keep, generally speaking, of course, some stability and some keeping things somewhat nice, depending on your personal transits. All right, so yeah, see that's the main aspects for Tuesday. So let's move this forward, and we're going to get to Wednesday on April 15. We start things off with the moon at the last critical degree of Pisces in the early morning hours of Wednesday. And again, this is like the darkest moon here, closing out all the past, closing out so much karma from the past. The Saturn cycle, the Neptune cycle, all these old cycles that went through Pisces. There's a lot of endings about that and new beginnings that are going to try to come in strong. But there's also a sense of urgency. There's a sense that things are beginning to end and change on very karmic levels, and even, again, psychological levels for people, health levels, because, again, Pisces is also connected to health. And so it's a turning of the corner here for Wednesday. And then we do get that big change. Well, first, the moon connects to Uranus as well. So another sextile to Uranus. This is our last big sextile from Pisces to Uranus and Taurus. We're never going to have this again. And so, again, we're connecting to the possibility of creating positive changes without destruction or collapse, by being innovative, looking at your money, your resources, how you manage things, what you do behind the scenes that affects your stability in life. There needs to be changes. And for my life too, trust me, this is pushing me into making major changes as well. So we all have to look at where do we need to make positive changes. Be open to that. It's not forced. It's a sextile. It's an opportunity. But if you are willing to take that opportunity, I think you can see positive results this week and beyond based on what happens. Okay, and then we get that change with the moon ingressing Aries, and now it's on. We have nothing but Aries going on here. This is very rare, this much Aries, this huge stellium. And check your chart. Where do you have Aries? I'll talk more about that when we get to the new moon of where it's all at. But it's fiery. It's all about fire. And fire is about passion, instinct, action, initiation, pioneering things. But we're still in the dark moon phase for now. So we're going to feel perhaps more and more push to be taking action. Even the way we're thinking is starting to change about that. And again, this is another world development on Wednesday as the moon crosses that world point and is conjunct Mercury on the world point. So again, there can be strong communication, strong information, strong news and media coming out about world developments. Now, even though this is Aries, typically deals with war and aggression, I'm not convinced that this is going to lead us to some major conflict this week because of all the strength that this chart has, actually. Again, a strong Mars in charge of everything here in Aries, plus the Sun is exalted, plus Venus in its own sign. I'm sorry, I said Venus was exalted before. That's my mind not quite clear yet. Venus is dignified in its own sign, not exalted. But Jupiter is exalted. And so anyway, because there's so much strength, I think we're going to see some positive results on the world level in this turning of the corner. But it's still Aries. It's still about, aggression. It's still about bravery and courage. And that's what's in focus. Do we have the bravery? Do we have the courage to do what's necessary as the sun starts to focus on Chiron, where there can be wounds and insecurities and sensitivities about the self? And that's the other thing, on an individual level, this is all about the self. Generally speaking, because, Aries is different for everybody in your chart, but it generally does represent the self and what we need to do, and that's why there's so much opposition to relationship as well. Now, because Venus is strong, it doesn't have to be terrible for everybody right now in relationship, but relationship, that full moon in Libra is really what hit me hard. I said it was aligned with me, and it definitely was. But for me, Libra is my 10th house of career. So my career, my public life here, my videos are being affected by all this Aries, because for me, Aries is my home, my foundation. And so there's a pull into wherever you have Aries more than where you have Libra, which Libra generally, people like to say Libra's not about relationship. It absolutely is about relationships and balance and trying to find better balance in life. And that's what that full moon a couple weeks ago was talking about. Where do we need to find better balance? And now we've been exposed to what area needs better balance, and we're being pushed into our Aries area of life to start something new there and focus a lot of energy there. And at the same time, we're going to be ending Aries season and entering Taurus soon. So just get ready. It's fiery. It's passionate. People probably, again, I think once Moon and Mercury get past Neptune, it's going to be even stronger. But there's also kind of a paradox or contradiction with Mars, Saturn. Mars is all about making things happen, but Saturn is kind of slowing things down, putting the brakes on. So it's like it can be back and forth. I'll talk about that conjunction more when we get there. So anyway, just a big change of energy overall that's coming in for tomorrow. And then the moon crosses over everything here. The moon will be conjunct Mercury. So again, strong communications, impulsive communications tomorrow on the world level with what's going on behind the scenes. There's still a sense of things are still a little bit behind the scenes until that moon reaches the sun. And then also the moon is with Neptune. So we're also wrapped up in this new vision, this new reality, this new world that's being developed. But on a personal level, it can also inspire us now, especially with Mercury in Aries, to be looking at what we need to do for ourselves. What is our own inspiration? about what we need to initiate or pioneer. But it can be dreamy, it can be creative, it can be kind of a bubble of passion or desire or something that's pushing us, that we're going to kind of be in this more energetic bubble here for maybe late morning until Moon crosses that in the afternoon and meets up with Mars. And that will be the next conjunction, is Moon conjunct Mars. This is going to be by evening, Wednesday evening here. So Moon Mars is impulsive, but Mars is strong. So because Mars is dignified, this typically shows that we can be taking positive impulsive action. I mean, you still want to check yourself and make sure you're not jumping headfirst into anything or, being too selfish or anything like that. But overall, there's going to be a strong emotional need for action tomorrow on Wednesday night. It could rile people up a little bit there as well. And it's at 4 to 5 degrees of Aries. So if you have 4 to 5 degrees of Cancer, then you're going to get a square. If you have 4 to 5 degrees of Libra, you get the opposition. And if you have 4 to 5 degrees of Capricorn, you get a square as well. And if you have 4 or 5 Aries, then it's right on your personal planet. So people that get the squares, it's going to be more of an attention aspect for you on Wednesday night. Opposition to Libra, it's not all about peace and balance and making everything great. It's about doing what needs to be done, no matter if it's pretty or not, generally speaking here. Then the moon connects to Pluto, though, on Wednesday night. And I think that is overall helpful because that activates the Mars sextile Pluto that will be coming in the following day. And that's a power aspect. So this might be turning of the corner for more and more energy, more and more power, more and more bravery and courage, and an easier sense of changing gears, so to speak. It's time to change gears and get ready for a brand new cycle that we're approaching. So that sextile to Pluto helps, plus it connects the self to the community, the group. That's where the power dynamic is right now in Aquarius with Pluto there. So we're more comfortable with power and change and transformation, generally speaking, on Wednesday night. And then the moon is conjunct Saturn at the same time. So again, the moon is right in between this Mars-Saturn conjunction that's building up. So we might also start to pick up or feel, both of these energies at the same time. A slowdown, wanting to put on the brakes, hold back a little bit versus impulsiveness for action, bravery and courage and making things happen. So it's like kind of find the middle ground there. Move, get things done, move forward, but also do it slowly, do it right, and check yourself with being overly impulsive. But with the moon approaching Saturn there on Wednesday night, it could be heavy. It could be, a pressure that people are feeling, a stress, a responsibility, and that's going to lead us to this new cycle that we'll have to be taking action on, whatever comes up after the moon crosses all these planets tomorrow. And then the last aspect will be the moon making that in conjunction to the south node, which is what all these planets have to do. So there's this strong in conjunction to 8 degrees of Virgo. Yeah, Virgo. So wherever you have Virgo, that area is strongly being affected by this change that is trying to happen. So generally Virgo deals with health, work, and service. So what needs to be adjusted? So for example, all this Aries generally is about the self, what we need to do about the self. And it's at odds with daily work and service. So some people might have to adjust their working life, what they do on their daily basis, or they might have to make a lot of adjustments to their health routines, and things like that. Also having to adjust to the details, the practical side of life, the earthly side, in different ways. But we all have to kind of adjust our Aries area of life to our Virgo area of life. And that can lead to irritations, at times. But ultimately, it's about making some sort of major adjustment in our daily, everyday routine based on what comes out the next 2 days. Well, really, we'll have that in conjunction through this entire report week that we'll have to deal with. All right, now that's the last aspect for Wednesday. And then we get to Thursday on April 16. The moon is still in the dark moon phase, but it's approaching that new moon, but it won't be on Thursday. So we're still in the dark moon. We're still, preparing for the new, but we're not quite there just yet. And this is also the day where the sun is making the perfect conjunction to Chiron. So we're going to have to overcome this. Now, I think we will overcome this because by the time we get to the new moon, technically the sun will be on the other side of Chiron. So we're having to deal with this on Thursday that can highlight sensitivities, wounds, insecurities, vulnerabilities about the self. How do we feel about the self? Again, do we have the courage? Do we have the bravery to make things happen in a way that we know we need to make happen? Now, it can also highlight injuries and wounds for people, even on a global level, so be extra careful this week. Also, with all this Aries like this, you don't want to, again, jump headfirst into things, get yourself, into something that is difficult. So just mainly check your impulsiveness and your instincts so that you don't get injured in an accident or hurt. Now, the people most affected by this are the people that are actually under a Chiron transit, which is a 49 to 50 year cycle. And this has been in place since last year of 2025 because Chiron has been going back and forth here. And this is the last time Chiron will be at 26 Aries for another 49 to 50 years. So people that have 26 degrees, 26, 27 degrees of Capricorn, Cancer, and Libra, and Aries, you're going through a rare Chiron transit of some sort of a wound that's either showing that you're wounded, you're going through a difficult moment here this year, since last year in some way, and it's being activated right now, or, maybe it's about healing. Hopefully that is the case, but it's not always the case in the moment. It might highlight things that are difficult and then lead to perhaps healing as time goes on, but it can go either way. And it's also going to affect confidence, However, because the sun is so strong, it's exalted. This is usually a very strong position for confidence and leadership ability, but that could be affected, with this conjunction. So again, 26 to 27 degrees of one of the cardinal signs, then you're really affected by this, and you need to, really look at what it's highlighting for you so that you can heal and kind of move forward in a new beginning as we get to that new moon the following day. Now, as the moon is going through this position of Aries on Thursday, it's still impulsive, fiery, passionate, but it's still waning until the new moon. But it is also making a square over to Jupiter. And now Jupiter's back at 17 degrees. So again, if you have 17 degrees of Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, or Aries, then you're under another Jupiter transit that's overextending you, over amplifying things for you. And in my case, it's exactly that. I have 17 Libra sun. So things are too much for me right now, but got to do what we got to do. And that's just the way it is. But tomorrow on Thursday, Moon square Jupiter shows, again, the mood, the feelings. Things are a little bit over the top, too much. And be aware of that as well. Try not to, try to tone it down a little bit if you can. But that's the issue, is you might not be able to. Mood is big, and the needs are big for people. There's also a conflict between, again, bravery, courage, initiating things, making things happen versus safety, security, and comfort, and all of that. This can also stir up a lot of earthy events too. Earth events, like storms, powerful, violent storms because of the Aries side of it all this week. We just had a big earthquake in Fallon last night, 5.7 earthquake. So the earth is also, kind of just going to be responding to this strong, powerful, energetic building up. But probably storms, spring storms, tornadoes, and stuff like that. Probably going to get a little bit critical this week, I would imagine. They probably already have been. I haven't been paying attention because I've been out of it. But that's a big energy for tomorrow. But then we get one easy aspect on Thursday, and that's Mars making that perfect sextile to Pluto. So again, that can be an empowerment, changing of gears, making things happen, going through easy transformation, having more energy. And then Mercury is conjunct Neptune. So the mind is wrapped up in this new world reality. We're really starting to see things differently. Every day that goes on this week, we start to see more and more. We get more and more clarity. But, Neptune is never about clarity ever. People love to say when Neptune turns direct, it's all about clarity. Neptune and clarity don't go together ever. So, it's more like a dream. It's more like a vision. It's more about this bubble, this new bubble on the world level that we're really tapped into. So it can be on a personal level. Again, your own dreams, your own imagination, your own vision of inspiration that you want to take action on coming up now for this new cycle. That's going to affect the next 2 years of your life, really. All right, so be a little cautious with what you hear, communication. The details might be a little bit off on Thursday. It's possible. Don't believe everything you hear. There can be projections from people as well. Always be aware of that. With Neptune, it's a projection energy. So make sure you're not projecting and make sure other people aren't projecting onto you. But it won't last. Mercury will move past that pretty quickly. And then we get to the following day on Friday, April 17. And the moon, first thing in the morning, is conjunct that Chiron and approaching the new moon with the sun there. And that's really what it's all about, is first thing on Friday. This is early morning too, so it sets the tone right off the bat, the Aries New Moon. So let me align it with that. The moon does cross over that Chiron, but Chiron is still a part of the new moon overall. So again, let me just align this real quick. It's going to be 27 degrees. 27 degrees, 28 minutes of Aries. 1 second here. If you've been wondering where I've been, don't know, you're probably not subscribed, because my subscribers get a community post. Not many people see it. I don't know why. It should show up on the timeline, but that's where I give updates. So, just check my channel, check the community posts if you're wondering about things. I usually will give an update. Okay, so here's the new moon, 27 degrees, 28 minutes of Aries. Check your chart. Where do you have Aries in your chart? That's where there's this massive pull of energy. That's where there's a real strong new beginning. So again, for me, it's my foundation of life, my home, my inner world that affects all other areas, the self, the career, relationships. So for me, it's about, I need to make some major changes to my home and foundation this next 2 years. And again, this isn't where everything just instantly changes. This is more of a time of seeds being planted, symbolic seeds of intentions, whether it's our own intentions or life itself is putting out intentions, but it's a new beginning in that area of your life of Aries. And then also check, do you have literally 27 degrees in your chart, a planet at 27? If you do, there's a strong new beginning for you on what that planet means, whatever houses that planet rules in your chart. And overall, this cycle, it's about Chiron, obviously, but because it's a cycle that's going to be separating from Chiron, I feel like it's a real strong turning of the corner where we can overcome any issues and obstacles that we've had about the self or in our Aries area of life. And we can start moving forward away from those issues. So we can consider this a healing cycle over the next year. What we do from now until next spring is going to make a big difference in life of healing or overcoming these issues of Chiron in Aries. And that's going to lead us to Chiron leaving Aries over this next year. And we're going to have such a stronger Aries in our lives about, again, bravery, courage, initiation, pioneering things and making things happen, doing what needs to be done. But this is fiery, passionate, impulsive still, instinctive. And there's also a sense of a change of season that will follow up based on this new moon. So really, the new moon has a wide orb square to Jupiter. It's also separating. I don't really look at that. That's too far for me to consider that square to Jupiter. But it's still a part of the issue, this Jupiter in Cancer. Again, showing that people need safety, security, and comfort. Their inner life that's affecting what we do on the outer life for the self and what we initiate. It's really affecting us. It's not making it easy for a lot of people with this Jupiter in Cancer. Now, Jupiter in Cancer is great. It's exalted. It's good, but it's at odds with the season that we're in right now. So that's the issue. Okay, and that is really the main aspect. Now, this new moon, it's an applying wide orb square to Pluto as well. So this new cycle is going to lead to massive transformation in the world and in our personal lives. And that transformation will be more powerful and intense within this cycle this next month. And it is kind of forced. A square is things that happen. There's tension because things have to happen. And so there's going to be a strong, powerful kind of transformative effect as time goes on with this new moon. All right, so that's the powerful aspect for Friday is the big event of the new moon. And then the moon instantly crosses over. Moves forward, and there's a sense of urgency too with this new moon on Friday. And all this happens right in the beginning of the day. So actually, there's going to be a mood change as the day goes on with this new cycle. The moon comes into Taurus exalted, ruled by Venus in its home sign. So this is now, it's almost even more strength because now we have another planet that's strong. So actually, we have no retrogrades right here. Everything is direct. Mercury's finally past Neptune. We have a new beginning ruled by a very strong Mars, but that Mars is conjunct Saturn. So Saturn is a big part of this new beginning as well. That shows, again, what we're starting now is going to be really about this next 2 years. It really comes down to this Mars-Saturn conjunction, which, again, I've researched through the past, and it doesn't always show a major event right on this. But because this one feels like it's definitely a powerful, again, I'll talk more about that when we get to the exact aspect of that. But because Mars is in charge and it still is approaching Saturn, there's a lot of work that has to be done within this next 2-year cycle. Well, even this next year, really, and then the 2-year for Mars, Saturn. But you're going to have to be patient with this. That's the complication. The Saturn debilitated here. Saturn is the weakest planet right now. So we do have to be patient, and that's difficult for Aries. And for all of us with this much Aries that says, go, make things happen. Now the momentum shifts to a building momentum with the waxing moon. So we do have a mood change that happens on Friday. Moon exalted shows that for the next 2.5 days, there wants to be more stability, more pleasure, more about the physical side of life. And that's going to be the shift as everything is going to start coming in to Taurus about the physical life and stability and pleasure and money and resource stuff. And the moon is going to be approaching Venus, but it won't reach Venus before Venus changes signs. But it's still showing that there's a need for keeping things nice and pleasant and stable and secure and dealing with money and resources in this new beginning but this is more about planting symbolic seeds through your financial life. So a part of this big new beginning of the Aries New Moon, it's also actually about Taurus in a lot of ways. What do we need to make? What changes do we need to make in our physical, material life, financial life? And the markets, banks, the world economy, it's shifting with this new moon, and I think for a positive. But we're also approaching this last bit of, Venus is going to usher Uranus out of Taurus and into Gemini. There's a major change about money and resources from this point on. But it's not necessarily instant, but we'll see it more and more as time goes on. So seeds are being planted here through the physical Taurus area of your life. Now, the moon has to activate that Pluto. So this is a part of the cycle that I talked about that's also transformative and kind of a powerful change that will come about based on this new beginning. So the moon squares Pluto as the day goes on. So it's an intense day. It's a powerful day. Plus the sun is going to be building up to the last critical degrees of Aries. So a sense of urgency, a sense that things are going to start moving forward in totally new ways. And Mercury's building up momentum to catch up with Mars and Saturn. So things are going to start showing more and more results in the world. So probably some big stuff by Friday as well. But just know there's a little bit of a power play here on Friday. Force change and transformation is likely. And then the moon connects to the nodes of fate. Mostly that south node, the trine to the south node and the sextile to the north node. So whatever happens on Friday, by Friday night, it's led to a sense of destiny and fate for the future. We can also connect to this Virgo area that I've been talking about that needs changes that we have to keep adapting to, adjusting to our work, our everyday life routine, service, health life. And we can make positive changes that have long-term effects based on this alignment on Friday night. Any changes that we're making can have positive results for the future. So that is the aspects for Friday, and then we move this forward and we get to Saturday this weekend on April 18. The moon is now looking a lot better here. It's past that square to Pluto, and it's building up a sextile with Jupiter. So again, this weekend, things want to be nice and pleasant. Physical activity. We're still in the process of planting symbolic seeds of intentions with this new moon. Life is doing it, whether we're trying, whether we're conscious of it or not. But it wants to be stable. Now, because of all this Aries, it can counterbalance a little bit of the pleasure or the stability, with all this. It does feel like it can be conflict also on one level. But the moon makes that sextile to Jupiter by Saturday afternoon. So that seems like a nice, pleasant aspect for us. Plus the moon is approaching Venus. Maybe we will get that moon Venus. Yeah, we will. So that's good. That's going to be a nice aspect when moon reaches Venus there. But at first, the moon sextile Jupiter shows we can just feel more comfortable, more supported. It could be good for getting what we want, getting what we need. It could be good for making any changes to home, family, property, real estate deals. If you want to do real estate, or if you have a real estate deal going on this weekend, I think that it could be good news for you. Hopefully, that's just generally, of course, I can't say every single real estate deal would be great, but in the era, this is a good time to be dealing with real estate or home and family or property matters. Okay, and then Mercury makes that sextile to Pluto, and we're tapping into that mental empowerment, mental transformation, connected good with the group and the community and the power dynamics. It could be persuasive. There's still a strong Pluto, Mercury, mind connection here, wanting to go deep, wanting to get the answers, wanting to have more clarity, wanting to get down to the truth and understand things on a deeper level. And then Saturn makes that in conjunction to the South Node. And again, we're going to have to make some sort of major adjustment this week into next week about daily routine, work, service, and health life. What needs to change to accommodate what we need to do over here in life, what we're starting in a brand new way. Now, I realize not every single person is going to have like some big new beginning, but I'm telling you, life, the world is really going to start moving forward into new territory with big new developments. And all this, now I think all this Earth, this connection between Taurus and Cancer, that's helpful for the Earth and water people, but this Aries is not going to be easy for Earth and water people. Okay, so we get that, and then we get the moon conjunct Venus. And that's going to be on Saturday night at 24 degrees of Taurus. So that's a pretty sweet conjunction. Now, Uranus is right there too, so that can throw a curveball in the mix about what happens. There can still be a little bit of unpredictability on Saturday night. This is pretty late though, so technically by the time the moon reaches Uranus, it'll be Sunday early morning. But I would still say, because it's close enough, there could just be some unpredictability. There could still be some conflict and violence, through this entire cycle because of all this Aries. That's really powerful. And also the sun is now at 29 degrees of Aries, a sense of an urgency. It's still critical. So there's this critical sense on one level, and then there's this pleasure on another level. Things want to be calm, beautiful, pleasant, enjoyable on Saturday night, but there could still be complications that disrupts that. So I'd say that the best use of this is more inward in a more intimate setting with, it can be good for a relationship, a personal relationship, romantic activity on Saturday night, kind of more on a inward level. I would kind of avoid a more social outward dynamic if you can. It could still maybe be okay for most people on Saturday night if you are going out, but there's still just so much tension in the background that it might be better in a more intimate setting. And that's the last aspect for Saturday until the moon reaches Uranus. Early Sunday morning on April 19. April 19 has a ton of aspects all day long. So it's going to be a busy, active day, a change of mood. And it sets off with this sense of urgency, a sense of change, radical, innovative, unpredictability, volatility is possible here. Some disruptions or just an overall big change of mood that comes in. And then the moon enters Gemini for the next 2.5 days. So now that the moon is in Gemini, it's being ruled by Mercury, but Mercury's being ruled by Mars. So still everything comes back to Mars besides Venus. So because the moon is now in Gemini and it's connecting a sextile now with all the Aries, this can be actually a little bit easier. In fact, the moon also forms the minor grand trine with all the outer planets, activating this new world dynamic that we're starting to see. But as the moon goes through Gemini, the mood starts to change. And because it's ruled by Mercury and Aries next to Mars, it's a lot quicker. Things are going to start speeding up. People's communication are sharp and quick, not always pleasant and nice. Gemini still wants to be a little more lighthearted and playful, but we're connected to so much seriousness right now because everything is approaching Saturn. It also just puts more emphasis on, networking, communications, information, busyness, being more active, doing a variety of different things. It puts more emphasis on the streets, the local community, the local area, teaching, learning, traveling. Now, you should be definitely careful of traveling, especially when we get to this weekend into next week because of Mercury conjunct Mars and Saturn. There could be some major transportation or traveling issue, that's possible with this next 2.5 days of the moon in Gemini. But again, the moon is in a good aspect with Aries, so overall, the mood feels like, okay, we can take action, we can make things happen. We're more comfortable with initiating something. pioneering something, even with technology in a new way. Remember, this spot of Gemini is also where Uranus is about to come into with this brand new transit for Gemini for the next 7 years. Revolutionary changes for Gemini are going to start coming in. And so we're picking up on that a little bit as that moon crosses over into this position. And then we see that Mars is also making that in conjunction. So there's this triple conjunction making that in conjunction to the South Node in Virgo. Again, what I keep saying, adjustments have to happen to your daily life, work, routine, and health life. And it can be a little bit irritating, of what's going on here. And then the moon is sextile Neptune, connecting to the world global point of this new reality in the world, inspirations, dreams. And the minor grand trine in the background, showing things are coming together in this new way and what we're starting in a new way. And then we get the big conjunction, Mars conjunct Saturn on Sunday. But luckily, the moon is in harmony with it. So from 7 to 8 degrees, we get this kind of triple conjunction going on Sunday into Monday. So this is where it's kind of a big reality check. Away from that Mercury and Pisces, now we're starting to get a lot more detail, a lot more clarity of what's been going on and news and information. But Mercury conjunct Saturn and Mars, it's also talking about the next 2 years and what we're going to be doing. So on the global level with countries and, the USA, the war, this is a turning of the corner with a new development and what's going to be happening basically for the next 2 years. It's still strong military energy on the world level here. But, again, I have researched Mercury, Saturn, Mars in the past. And my memory is a little bit off right now, perhaps. But actually, I do remember that Napoleon died on a Mercury, Saturn, Mars, Aries conjunction. I'm pretty sure I remember that. Napoleon died. It's usually a sense of a turning for the world, a turning point for the world with major world developments, leaders, changes in era, basically for world power, a government. But we don't always necessarily see it instantly. That's why when I've researched it, you won't always get some major event exactly on the day. Usually that year will have some historical major change that was rooted in this conjunction. But it's more about, again, it's kind of like a new moon. It's more about seeds are being planted for what will develop as time goes on over this next 2 years. So check your chart. Where do you have 7 to 8 degrees of Aries? That's where the root of this new beginning that you're going to be taking action on over the next 2 years. So you'll see the results within the next 2 years until Mars reaches up with Saturn again. So it's also kind of a frustrating conjunction because, again, Mars is about taking action, doing things quickly. Saturn is about slowing down, putting on the brakes, holding back a little bit. So it wants to be disciplined action. Now, because Mars is ultimately in charge and Mars is strong, it can still have positive results. But it talks about taking your time, doing things right. It's not about just instant results. And it's also like a sense that the military is in charge. Like, I'm not saying everywhere in the world, obviously, but maybe it's Iran or something. It's just usually a symbol that military has more power than the government in one country right now. Or the military will take over a government or something like that is possible as well. This can also be deeply powerful for the Earth too. Earth events, but that's the thing. It may not necessarily be a big Earth event right on this day. It's more about within this next 2 years, there's likely to be some big changes. Maybe a major historical event will happen that shakes something up, like a major earthquake, not a 5.7 or a 6. Those are normal. I'm talking about something much bigger within the next 2 years, but, I can only be vague about that right now in this context. But it's still intense. It's still really intense mental energy, Communication is very intense and powerful. It's impulsive still. There's probably some major news and information that's going to come out by next week based on this conjunction. Now, if you have 7, 8 degrees of Cancer, now Trump does. Trump has 8 degrees of Mercury. And so this conjunction is going to square his Mercury. So there's going to be some big important news, most likely Sunday, Monday, Tuesday or so of next week, that Trump is involved with. That's difficult for him or something. And then if you have 7, 8 degrees of Libra, you get the major opposition, which I do, unfortunately. And 7, 8 degrees of Capricorn, you also get a square. So it's going to be much more difficult for the cardinal people than the other signs, especially if you have a planet around 7 to 8 degrees. And then the moon makes a trine to Pluto with that minor grand trine. So again, there's a transformation taking place. It's more communication, information, it's social, groups and community organizations, science and technology. It is interesting that the last time we went to the moon, Saturn was also in Aries, so it tends to represent that for the future. You can log that down. There's major space development. This can also indicate pioneering, like in space. This next level of technology in life is moving forward. There's a lot of technology about all this too that's going to start moving forward. And we're going to see more and more of it as time goes on. And then we get a change of season. The sun ingresses Taurus on Sunday night. So now the sun is going to be focusing on your Taurus area of life. That's going to go through a major change this Taurus season. This is the last time Taurus will have Uranus in its sign. So now the sun in Taurus is being ruled by Venus, and Venus is still very strong, but also approaching that Uranus for a big change. But it is a big change of focus, a big change of energy to try to add more stability and physicality to what's going on. We still have all this Aries, which is still, passionate and instinctive and active. But now we're going to try to find a better balance here and also try to show some stability. But the sun has to build up that square to Pluto. Now that's not going to be this week. It'll be next week. So there'll still be this ongoing sense of forced change and transformation based on what's building in this new beginning, this next couple weeks and beyond. All right, so with that, let's move on here. Moon also now connects to that 7 degrees. So it feels like, plus the moon is T-squared the nodes of fate on Sunday night. So Sunday night is a fateful night of development, and I think on the world level, because the moon is connecting to Mercury, Saturn, and Mars all at the same time with the nodes. So we have some sort of a major development for the world on Sunday into Monday. But it's also strong communication, and we seem to be comfortable with this power dynamic and this intensity of this new conjunction. So that'll be the last aspects: moon sextile Saturn, moon sextile Mars, and then the very last aspect is Mercury in conjunct to the south node. Again, the last planet there, making that adjustment to the work, service, health, and daily life routines based on what we're starting in a new way this week and beyond. So that is Sunday. Sunday, I would also be a little bit cautious. If you are out Sunday, looks like there could be some issues with transportation, traveling. Take your time. Be prepared just in case. Maybe you'll be good. Maybe you will. But it looks like there's a strong potential of an accident, a major issue with travel or transportation, likely. Be very surprised if we don't see something like that this week and into next week. All right, so there's that. And now Mercury. Well, so then we get to Monday on April 20th, and all we have is this triple conjunction going on the whole day. That's the only aspects. The moon is still in Gemini on Monday, but it's not connecting to anything. It's kind of in between. So really, it's all about Mercury. Saturn, and Mars. There's going to be a major announcement this week and into next week, a new development, something major on the world level is going to start coming in. But with Mercury-Saturn conjunction, it's intense, it's heavy. Remember, Trump is getting that aspect in a difficult way next week on Monday into Tuesday. So that's where, the mind, you have to be careful. Don't get depressed. Don't get over agitated. Kind of wait that out. I would be very cautious in doing any major communications. If you have to do something mercurial, I would wait till Mercury gets past Saturn and Mars, actually. For example, say you have to go get a driving test. I would probably not do it on this day next week on Monday or Tuesday. Wait it out a little bit. Or if you have to do, it can also be like a contract or something, signing of a deal, signing of a lease, a contract that's quite serious, and it's going to perhaps affect you for the next year in a major way, maybe even the next 2 years because of Mars. So it's all about Mercury, Saturn, Mercury, Mars. People can be also a lot more critical and cynical, and there can be some communication and conflict. So try to hold yourself back, and it can still be very impulsive, where you're just, some people could be lashing out impulsively. They could be saying things that they don't mean, or saying things that they would rather not say, but it comes out. So Sunday into Monday kind of looks critical, in my opinion, with that. So just keep that in mind and kind of avoid it if you can. Kind of lay low during that conjunction if you can overall. But if you have 7, 8, 9 degrees of the Cardinals, then you're probably forced to deal with it no matter what. And I hope it won't be a client of mine that's upset. Again, I'm going to try to contact everybody and reschedule. And I apologize for the long wait. If you were stuck when I got ill here with the report, I'm very accommodating. I can refund anybody if anybody needs, if they're not able to wait for my report. So please be patient with this, and just be patient in general, no matter what's going on in your life with this. Be very patient. It can be super frustrating as Mercury crosses over this. So that is the last aspect, and that's my report for you guys. So if you want to support my channel, I don't put up ads for you at all. I don't monetize anything, and yeah, I'll leave a link if you do want to support my channel. I am kind of going through a difficult time here. But if you can't, that's fine too. And I hope you guys have a great week, and thanks for watching. Take good care.